for those of you who are listening, you may or may not know what we're doing at this particular moment. But for those of you on YouTube, you do know. For those diehard football fans out there, that screen down there, we have a very special guest joining us here today. Former NFL Vice President officiating, Dean Blandino. Welcome, my man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
This is great. We have out of the group of five, we have two people, me and Mike.
Yeah.
So we would have.
Mike's eating dessert over there. I don't know what he's. Yes, what's going on over there, Mike?
What's going on, Mike?
I'm not. Don't know if you guys are familiar with Sonic. I don't know how far it goes.
Yeah,
we have Sonic. We have Sonic here in New York. Come on.
You never know.
You never know.
Sonic Reese's Blast.
Oh man, that looks amazing.
My wife's going to kill me when she finds out what without her.
Good man. Hide that. You better hide that from her, please.
I want to eat it and throw it away, and then she probably won't know until she checks the bank, and then she'll ask, "When did you go to Sonic?"
My girlfriend would never let me go to Sonic, but who cares? I'll still go regardless. My Patriot fan of a girlfriend. Stuff. Oof. Yeah, I forgot to tell you, Dean. My girlfriend's a diehard Patriot fan, so I have to I gotta get reminded of that play.
That's rough.
Oh.
That is rough. You were that close. You were one Marshawn Lynch handoff from the Super Bowl.
Even then, read option. You could have done either way. But let's get to why we're here. We have a ton of questions for Dean. Sent a couple tweets. Got a ton of responses. But let's talk about a very. Let's get to the big talk. So, back in 2012. There was a very infamous play involving this team, the Fail Mary.
Yes.
Yes. Let's relive that, shall we? It was week 3, but during the amidst of that game, there was a strike going around. But can you relive that for us, please?
Yeah, that was the beginning of that season. There was a lockout, so the officials, the NFL officials, have a union like the players do, and they were trying to extend their CBA, and they couldn't come to an agreement with the league, and so the league locked them out while the negotiations were going on. So we had the replacement officials, right?
Yeah.
And so the replacement officials were working the first 2 weeks, and then into week 3, and obviously that game happened. It's Monday night against the Packers. Your Seahawks were on the right end of that call, and Packers.
I'm a rational fan. It should have been an interception called. It should have been.
Yeah. Well, it was interception. Golden Tate pushed the defensive back, and should have been offensive pass interference. But hey, the silver lining, other than the Seahawks' victory, was that the lockout was over. The regular refs came back, and that Thursday night, that was Monday night, Thursday night in Baltimore, they were back. But that was definitely an interesting play and an interesting time during, in the NFL's history.
Yeah. What is the process to review calls from New York, like from the officiating office over in New York City? Who makes the final decision? Is it you who makes the final decision, or is it someone else?
Yeah, so now it's the people in New York. So when I was there, the rule was the vice president officiating could get involved in the decisions, but the referee had the ultimate say. Now they changed the rule to say the people in New York have the final say, but it's really a collaboration. The referee is talking to the person in New York on the headset. It's like you and I looking at a play. Hey, look at the foot. The foot's out of bounds. Okay, it's incomplete. So it's really a collaboration, but ultimately the people in New York have the final say.
All right. Kyle is a diehard Bills fan. And back in 1999... I'll tell him you said that.
And I love the Bills. I want the Bills to do well.
Hey, we all do. I feel bad for him, too. He's got a whole sleeve
Yep.
of his favorite sports teams. He's got the Mets on there. He's got the Knicks. He's got the Buffalo Sabres, the
I'm a
Rangers.
Knicks fan too.
Oh,
That's been rough.
oh,
It's rough.
man.
That's
You are definitely a New Yorker, and I love it. But back in 1999, 2000 to be exact, the Music City Miracle happened over in Nashville, Tennessee. Going over to that play, you can look at that film a million times.
Yep.
If you had the say of if you had the final say of that play, forward pass, lateral, regardless, what's your decision?
I mean, I honestly thought it was right down the line. I thought it was as close to a lateral, and when it's not clearly forward, then it's considered a backward pass. And it was unbelievable how just Wycheck's body, the way he was throwing the ball, and then when Dyson caught it, it was literally right down the line. So, I watched the play. I thought it was a good play.
You could watch film a million times of the Music City Miracle, even the Immaculate Reception back in '72.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that a ton of times, and even then,
Yeah, we've all seen that highlight a million times. Yeah.
the film is still a mystery because it's only 5 clips. It's only 5 clips, and it's all showing Jack Tatum should be a Hall of Famer hitting the fullback. Was it a full? I forget his name. And Franco Harris catches the ball in midair.
Was it
Touchdown.
Frenchie Fuqua? Was that who?
It was
got hit?
Frenchie. Thank you, Frenchie Fuqua. I should know that. My dad being a Steeler fan, I should know that. Oh, Mike, you've been on a few wrong sides of some bad calls, especially in Denver. Have you?
quite a few. And I was going to ask him about the tuck rule in New England and Oakland.
Oh.
Going back.
Back, yeah, I remember. So I was working at the league office at the time, but I wasn't at the game, and I was actually at the movies when it happened.
Really?
And then, yeah, my phone started to blow up, and obviously wasn't in the same position as as head of officiating. I was lower at that time, but my phone started to blow up. I was like, "What is going on in that game?" And then got home, saw the highlights, and that was definitely a controversial play. It was, at the time, it was the right call based on the rule. I think people didn't really understand the rule. The rule has since been changed. So under the current rule, that would have been a fumble. Oakland would have won that game, and the Tom Brady Patriots would never have existed.
No.
And so,
Oh, not at all.
Never.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
That changes an entire fan base, let's be honest here.
Well, absolutely.
It does change an entire fan base. I still look at that, and I still think of it like, that's a fumble. That should be a fumble. But
Should
nope.
be a fumble.
Nope. You don't have to talk about this one, but we can talk about, let's be honest here, Dean. You and me, 3 of us. Is there favoritism between the officials? We're talking about this as fans here because
This is the trust tree right here.
this is the trust
right.
tree. Like I said before we recorded, you don't have to talk about it.
So, it's a common question, and honestly, there isn't. Officials get to a point in their career where that it's so their professionalism, how much they put into it. They get evaluated on every play of every game.
Okay.
So if they were playing favorites, we'd pick up on it and we would know. The league monitors all their calls. And so, look, as a human being, I can't sit here and say human nature isn't going to. You hear about like the Jordan rules and superstars get certain calls.
The LeBron rule.
LeBron rules, things like that. Does Tom Brady get more calls than say a rookie quarterback? And when you look at it though, and you look at the numbers, they really don't. But that's obvious something that is going to come up because we're all human and we all have those tendencies. But really, in my experience, I've never had officials, show or exhibit any kind of favoritism, and the league does take steps to ensure that doesn't happen.
Dave is from New Orleans, so he's got some Saints blood in him, and he's going. I'm sure he's going to blow up my phone once this goes out. The Saints were robbed. The Saints were robbed. If you were in charge of that call, would you overturn that?
It's a good question, because you by rule you can't review past interference, last year's rules, right?
No,
you couldn't
can't
review that. But I think had I been there and I was on the headset, it's such a significant play and will be a catastrophic mistake. I think I would have said something to the referee and said, "Hey, get together, talk about it. We got to put a flag down." And it would not have been the right thing by rule, but I think it would have been the right thing to do. And I don't think anybody would have a problem with that.
No, because I still see Saints fans on Twitter screaming.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw the Monday night
Absolutely.
game. Half of Mercedes-Benz Superdome was filled with ref costumes.
Oh, yes.
I've never seen one city hate no offense. I have never seen a whole city hate officials more than I've seen New Orleans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're frozen, by the way.
And that becomes an issue with the officials. They had to move hotels that night. They were staying in New Orleans. They had to move to a hotel outside the city.
Really?
So again, sometimes we forget these are human beings and it's a game, but it definitely was a significant situation, and I know Saints fans are not happy.
And that would have been a much better Super Bowl than the one that we got in
Well, yeah, the way it played out, you're probably right.
That would have been a better Super Bowl for ratings, for excitement, for the fans.
Sure.
You're frozen, by the way, Dean, on my end. I don't know if you can see, but you're frozen on my end.
I'm frozen? I mean, I can hear you.
You're frozen on my, it's just showing you're frozen on my screen. So it's not an issue. I can still hear you.
Okay.
All right. Mike, is he frozen on your end?
I can see you guys fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're good.
Could we potentially see NFL overtime rules change to more like a college football type of ruling?
I think that's been discussed. Personally, I like the NFL overtime rule because it still maintains a sense of sudden death where the game can end on any one play. I think there are a lot of people that think both teams should get an opportunity to possess the football, and I can see the reasons why. I think we're going to have to wait and see. I think the number of games that are decided on the first possession is still a relatively low number, and so I don't know if there's any real appetite to make that change right now.
But in terms of the whole games ended a tie, we just saw the Cardinals and Lions ended a tie in week 1. You're a hockey fan, I'm sure. Obviously a big Ranger fan.
That's right.
Could we potentially see a shootout style in the NFL after the overtime period where we get a shootout? Like, let's say, I don't know, best 2 out of 3 on 50-yard field goals.
Yeah,
it's possible. I think a lot of people on the competition committee and the rules committee, one of the things you try to maintain with overtime is there's a couple of goals. You're trying to decide a winner, right? That's number one. But you also want all phases of the game to be a part of. You don't want to change the game so much in overtime where it doesn't look like football. And I think that's probably the biggest pushback on a kind of a shootout type deal. And I know some of these other leagues have done some other things with overtime. The XFL is going to be playing in 2020. They're going to do a basically more like a soccer shootout where you're going to have each team's going to get 5 plays from the 5-yard line, and you basically alternate. So
nice.
You alternate, and somebody gets 3 out of 5, the other team gets 2. The team with 3 wins. So it's just like a soccer shootout. So we'll see how that goes, how that looks, and then the NFL, I'm sure, will continue to discuss overtime.
Mike,
do you do you see the NFL bringing back celebrations once, like an individual score, going back like last year? I know Michael Thomas and Joe Horn grabbed the phone under the goalpost padding. Of course, he got penalized, but do you think we'll see a celebration back, or is that just going to be a continued penalty?
Bring back the fun bunch.
Yeah, right. Well, they definitely eased up on the celebrations 2 years ago, and so you're seeing more of the group celebrations, and those things are allowed. I think where Thomas was wrong in that you can't use something like a foreign object, like a phone or something. So if he had done something with a teammate or something choreographed, they're letting that go. But once you start to bring in outside things like a phone or a Sharpie, remember T.O. did the Sharpie, that's going to be a penalty.
Against Seattle, too. I remember that.
Yes.
I remember that game. Al Michaels, is he pulling it up, Ben?
Yep.
Now, for all of our viewers out there that's listening and that will listen throughout the week, what is and I got a question earlier via the text, what makes a call viewable and non-reviewable?
Yeah, so you look at replay, and when replay was instituted, it was to fix the obvious mistake on a critical play, but also they were dealing with, things that were objective, like the ball touching the ground, the foot touching the sideline, and it was trying to stay away from some of the subjective calls like pass interference, like holding. So, because those things we could debate, right? We could look at 10 plays and not agree on any of them, whereas with replay, you're trying to look at, okay, the ball touched the ground, it's an incomplete pass. So I think that's where it starts, is in terms of what is reviewable. You're dealing with possession plays, sidelines, goal lines, end lines, all of those things are reviewable. But now, it's, as we see in the NFL, they're adding penalties, and so we start with pass interference, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, and will they add more next year?
Super Bowl 40. I'm sure.
Oh,
yes. Yes.
I was there.
You were there in Detroit.
I was in Detroit. Yep.
How sick were you during that game?
That was a game where obviously Seahawks fans don't look back on that game with fond memories, and I know, and I've known Mike Holmgren for a long time, and he doesn't. He's still kind of. I think he's still.
Oh, sure.
He still is not at peace with that game.
No.
Look, it was a game where you hope, especially a Super Bowl. There were a couple of controversial plays. There were a couple of plays that the officials did miss. And those things are, they affect the game, certainly. I don't think the officiating was why the Seahawks lost, but it definitely is something you have to overcome when you don't get those calls.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a tough deal. That was one of the Super Bowls where people, were obviously upset because some of the calls were controversial. And I know that we missed a couple in that game.
And that was a great Seahawk team. Number one offense in the NFL. Sean Alexander was the league MVP.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my favorite Seahawk team out of all of them. I always keep pulling back to the 05 team.
Yep.
And 2003. We want the ball and we're going to score.
We're going to score, yeah.
Oh, boy.
That was, he was confident. You want that.
He was confident. I can't argue that. He was confident.
Don't throw a pick, though.
Don't throw a pick to Al Harris. Please don't. Yeesh. I'm sure it's blowing up your phone right now. The Antonio Brown situation, even before everything that happened with the Patriots, was that the weirdest tender you could see for an NFL player have with the Raiders of all teams?
It really is bizarre. You think about how much news. Has there ever been a player that didn't play a snap or a minute on whether it's another sport, never played an actual game for a team and generated more news? I don't think that's ever happened. It's pretty crazy where you have a guy that's supremely talented, and but obviously there's some things follow him around and some off the field stuff, and it's a shame because he is so good, but who knows? I don't know what's going to happen going forward.
And the whole situation that happened today and yesterday
Sure.
with the Patriots, because I don't tolerate that kind of stuff. Mike, I know you don't tolerate that stuff. Dean,
No,
I'm sure you don't tolerate that stuff either. But
Yeah, that's the type of thing, and the league will look into it. But it's just, again, one of those things where this is a guy that is a really good football player, but there's a lot of other things that come with it.
it's a civil lawsuit, so technically the NFL can't get involved until when?
Well, that's a good question. So the league has a pretty broad personal conduct policy, and the commissioner has a lot of power within that policy to sit a player down. There's the commissioner's exempt list, and so if there is a player that is under investigation for whatever, the commissioner can, under that policy, put him on the exempt list. And obviously, like you said, it's a civil suit. There hasn't been anything in terms of a criminal aspect to it. But I know the league, will look into it. And certainly if there are charges filed at some point, that's when it becomes more significant, and the league can certainly take action. So I'm interested to see how this is going to play out, because that's, especially with the Patriots, and that's an organization that has been so successful, and they are pretty buttoned up, and they do things a certain way. So
And with controversy.
It's be interesting to see. Yeah, a lot of controversy.
Out of the two big scandals, Spygate, Deflategate, if you had to relive either one of those two,
Oh God,
what would it be?
Neither one brings back great memories.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's Spygate was one of those deals where it just, I don't think anybody really knew what was happening. Then the video, they basically confiscate this video, and they're shooting the sideline and the coaches' signals, and the Patriots said we didn't know that was illegal. And so I think that was one thing. But Deflategate to me was just, and because it was more recent, it's more fresh in my memory. It was just a complete, like, you take something as simple as the footballs and the pressure in the footballs, and it became how many years did that go on?
2 years.
For?
Two.
Brady finally got suspended in 2016.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that both of those were, they'll go down in history, not as a positive for the league.
No, and and however long this Patriot dynasty continues to go on, the two downsides will always be those two cases, Deflategate and Spygate.
People are going to look at that. Yeah,
well, of course,
no question.
Now,
yes, Mike.
On a non-game related type, what's the preparation for an official throughout the week, and what is their day by day living life leading up to game day?
Yeah, so a lot of officials, so most NFL officials, they do have other jobs. That's just the reality, because football is played once a week. Right. And you look at other sports, they're full-time because they have games, 3, 4, 5 times a week, whereas football, it's once a week. So it's not like they can go and work practice and things like that, because you don't want to have officials getting too familiar with the clubs. And so during the week, there's a lot of film study. They get a report from the league of their previous week's game, which gives them all the things they did right, the things they missed. And so they'll get that feedback. They review their upcoming games. So if they're going to work the Seahawks and the Steelers, not to bring up that matchup, not to bring up the subject.
Ellie, if you're listening,
if the Seahawks and Steelers, if we're going to work that game, then they're going to look at some Steelers tape and some Seahawks tape, see tendencies, formations, things that they like to do in different situations, so they can anticipate. And then if it's a Sunday game, they get to that city on Saturday. They have a couple of hour pregame. Then they go to the game on Sunday. Typically, they get there 3 hours before kickoff. There's some things that they have to do prior to kickoff. And then they work the game. They head home, and it starts all over again.
Very nice.
Oh boy. Back in 2014, the 2014 NFC Divisional Playoffs. You might know where I'm going with this. Dean.
Yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. Let's go.
I love the enthusiasm. Des Bryant's no catch, catch, fumble, touchback. Please run us through it. Was that a catch or not a catch?
You know, under the rules at the time, it wasn't a catch, and I think people struggle with. I think when it goes against your team, sometimes the people are like, that's the bad rule. When it goes in favor of your team, let's say that's a good rule. So at that time, you know, he was going to the ground. He had to maintain control of the ball. The ball hit the ground. It came loose. It was incomplete. I knew it was going to be controversial immediately just because of the magnitude of the play, and said as much at the time. But I knew what the right call was. I knew we had to overturn it, and so we did, and it's lived on. And Cowboys fans have not. There hasn't been a day that has gone by that Cowboys fans have not reminded me.
You're in a cowboy infested area.
So, and it's a Dez himself, I guess, had these shoes made last week that they have Dez caught it and the date, and he tweeted me a picture of the shoes. So, but I don't think Dez is over it either.
I'm sure Dez is not over it. I am sure of it. So I'm looking at this picture of the Washington Huskies game. That's a lot of Taco Bell, my friend. That's a lot of Taco Bell. I couldn't do that.
It's not just for me, by the way. There's about 5 of us in the studio.
Okay, thank God. I thought that was all for you. I was about to say, that's impressive.
There's a group of us, and we were there for the game. We had a 2.5 hour lightning delay.
Yeah.
So we were there till 1:30, and that's Pacific. So 4:30 on the East Coast. And we were definitely hungry, and it was late, so we ordered a bunch of Taco Bell for the group.
Worth it?
I couldn't eat that much Taco Bell by myself.
No, I'm sure you couldn't. I'm sure you could. Mike, maybe, but...
I don't know.
You sure?
Our Taco Bells around here is not great.
Okay.
Now, there's a Taco Casa. I recommend them more than Taco Bell.
Really? Okay. I don't know if they have those out here, but they've got in LA. There's really good Mexican food, pretty much.
And In-N-Out Burger.
In-N-Out, that's right. Although In-N-Out, look, In-N-Out's okay. I think it's a lot of hype, but
Controversial decision by Dean Blandino.
it's you know it's like the Browns this year. A lot of hype, but they didn't.
Oh
sweet
man.
They didn't do anything.
I'm a burger guy. I will continue. Look, I'm a huge burger guy, and In-N-Out Burger. That's not the best burger I've ever had, but it's my favorite one. There's a hotel in Las Vegas called the Alaria, and right across from it is Planet Hollywood. If you go in that section of a strip mall in there, there's a barbecue restaurant, and their signature burger is called the Double Trouble.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've been to Vegas recently, Dean.
Last time was March, I think.
Okay, so I highly recommend this burger. How do I describe this? It's a large.
Yeah, no, don't let the men down though.
It's a large burger though. It's a large one. It's delicious though. Highly recommend it.
You know what? You know what's a really good burger that I don't know if they have them anywhere outside of Texas, but Whataburger. Whataburger's pretty good.
Yes,
I will say that. Yeah.
I have Wahlburgers, which is Mark Wahlberg's burger.
Yeah, never eat. I know Wahlburgers, but I haven't eaten there.
They're not bad.
Yeah.
Whataburger's big. They grew up, moved up here in Oklahoma. They're pretty big here as well. So yeah, I know all about Whataburgers.
Okay. Yeah,
Diner burgers are good too.
Oh yes.
Burgers from a diner are good too. Like if you go to your favorite diner and order a burger, like a nice, decent cheeseburger, with some
That's what I
tomato.
miss. That's what I miss about Long Island and New York in general. Just the diners. The diner scene in LA is it's not as good.
Get your behind back here, then, man. Come visit.
I
Seriously.
miss it. My mom, my sister, my brother, they're all in Long Island, so I try to visit
Hey.
more so in the off season. But yeah,
All right. Let me know. Let me know when you're in. Let me know. Seriously, I will take you to my favorite diner, and
all right, sounds good.
because the pancakes there are really good. It's a small 50s diner, but
Okay, cool.
it's
Nice.
really nice. I could go for some pancakes right now. Jeez.
No, I haven't eaten yet, so it's only almost 6 o'clock
5:50,
here.
yeah.
So you got making me hungry.
Oof. Let's keep it going. Like how's the steaks over there? Like what's your favorite steak? What's your favorite steak over there?
They have all the usual steakhouses. I don't have like a specific steakhouse out here that they have all the like Del Frisco's and Mastro's and some of these other Ruth Chris, all those other steakhouses, but I don't have one that really stands out.
Like Major Steakhouse in Nassau County. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That's
Oh.
right. Yeah. I mean, I remember like the ground round. I remember in
You're going way back.
way back. Absolutely. Yeah.
So the family the brothers Jerome Majors opened a new restaurant called the Bryant, and that's good. That's
Really?
a really good place. Mike, you've obviously never been to Long Island,
No, sir.
or recently. So I'm gonna describe to you Major Steakhouse. So it's a small little steakhouse in the middle of nowhere in Nassau County, Long Island. So
Right.
it's a small little shop, like I said, and the steaks you get charbroiled steak. I recommend the T-bone or the ribeye, and it comes with vegetables, mashed potatoes, your choice of drink. Oh, cooked perfectly. Medium rare. Medium rare has to be
Yeah.
medium
You
rare.
gotta go medium rare.
Gotta
I
go
agree.
medium rare. Anything away from that is no. That's immediate ejection from the game.
I agree.
Immediate ejection.
I grew up with my dad having everything well done, and we didn't get enough.
Oh, come on,
Oh, wow.
come on, Dean.
So when I got old enough, I was like, nope, sorry, Pop.
No. Well, I used to get well done pizza. I used to get well done steak.
Mhm.
After maybe when I was 12 or 13, I stopped doing that. It's like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I can't do this
I
anymore.
don't do well done pizza. That's the other thing. I miss New York pizza. That's for sure.
oh man, you're missing some stuff over here.
So bagels. Although
Beaches, too.
LA has an interesting take on bagels. They're actually not bad.
Really?
Yeah, they've got it's an LA bagel. I don't know what the kind of the unique thing about it is, but they're actually not that bad. And then there is a place in Santa Monica. It's called Joe's Pizza. I think they're from New York, and it's as close to New York style that I've had out here.
Has to be. They have to be
I'll
from
go
New York
there,
then. They gotta be. At least Brooklyn or Queens, somewhere. If you had to pick your favorite pizza place in New York, what would it be? State, city, island?
I lived in Brooklyn Heights for a long time, and there was a couple pizzerias around there. None of the famous ones, but I'm trying to think of the name of the one that was right near our place. We used to go there all the time. But that's the thing about New York, especially in Brooklyn. You can kind of go on any street corner and there's a pizzeria, and it's going to be pretty good. So
Yeah. So, in my town, we have a place called Furchie's. So, I'm sure you've had chicken stroganoff before, or heard of it.
yeah,
So, the pizza that they have, their specialty is chicken stroganoff pizza, which is you take chicken strog, you bake it into the dough, and then you put more chicken strog on top of the pizza, and then you bake it with that. So, it sounds incredibly unhealthy, but so good. It's delicious.
It sounds delicious.
It's delicious.
It does sound delicious.
Yes, I will say that.
Very good. Highly recommend. That's not a penalty. That's for sure. That's not a penalty. It's not a fine. I won't even need to call you, Dean, to get that reviewed.
The ruling on the field is confirmed.
This is great.
There's so many good officiating puns. It's like, yeah.
Oh, I play it all the time at work. All the time. Ow, I chipped my toe. That's not good. Oof. That's not good. Oh, I'm sorry.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm alright. I got foot surgery recently. And because it's fine. I'll look at it later. I'm in the middle of a podcast, for God's sakes, toe. You gotta do this to me now. Jeez. Regardless. Oh. Dean, my man, thank you so much for coming on. This was great.
Absolutely.
This was awesome. I love it. I will be sure to have you back on. Absolutely. This was so much fun. Seriously.
I'd love to come on anytime, and follow me. I just started a new podcast. It's called Good Calls with Dean Blandino.
Can do.
And you can get it on anywhere you find podcasts. So check that out too. And and when questions come up, let me know.
Oh, can do, my man. This was fun. This was a lot of fun. Seriously, let me know when you're back in the area, please.
I will. I will promise.
I will get your behind to some of that chicken stroke pizza.
It sounds amazing. I definitely want to try it.
Get here hungry, seriously.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go have dinner right now.
Oh, all right. Have a good one, guys.
All right, guys.
Take care, Dean. Take care, man.
You too. Take care, Mike. Take care, Dan.
You too.